Welcome to the Pointe Podcast. The Pointe is brought to you by North Pointe's Bible Department as an outreach for North Pointe Christian Schools and for outside listeners curious to know more about the grand story of God and the Bible. We're so glad you joined us. So let's just get to the point.
I want to welcome all our listeners out there to the first kind of inaugural The Pointe Podcast. And this one, the intent is just to get to know the Bible teachers here at North Pointe Christian. And I want to give each one of them an opportunity to kind of say who they are, what they teach, why they're here, what's special about North Pointe Christian. My name is Todd Schenck, and I'm joined by my friends and colleagues here. We have Chip Huber, and he'll be kind of taking the lead on this, and then Matt Bell, and then I'll kind of finish up with some things. But Chip, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
You bet. Thanks, Todd. It's always fun to be together. I think that's one of the unique things about our Bible department is we really are friends and colleagues both. And I think that's one of the things that is so beautiful about the opportunity to be involved in Christian education. So I am in my 5th year here at North Pointe and have been working with middle school, high school, and college students for over 30 years now. And you always get interesting looks, right, from people when you tell them that's how you've spent your professional life. They think you're either crazy, something along that line. But I love what I get to do every day. And I get to teach our Old Testament classes here at North Pointe. And in particular, that's sort of the start of our high school Bible curriculum. So I get to kind of greet the freshmen as they come in and love the opportunity to engage with them about so many of the stories that maybe they've heard a little bit about, but they don't really know the details. They don't really understand, kind of what the driving themes are, what God was really trying to do through his people. And I think one of the things in particular that I love right now is that I think we all feel this a little bit. There's this sense of does the Old Testament really matter? Right. Kind of, right? Isn't that kind of outdated? And maybe God, was different then, or whatever the idea is out there. And I love this idea that it's still incredibly important for us to understand in the narrative, obviously, of the whole Bible and the scriptures leads so beautifully to what's coming in the New Testament. And also, I think, has incredible opportunities for us to learn from and to practice how do we live well as God's people. So I love doing that and get a chance to do some other things around here at North Pointe as well too. Get a chance to be involved in student life, overseeing our student life programs in terms of student activities, student leadership. Have been pretty involved in the athletic department here as well too. And that's actually one of the reasons I love being in Christian high school setting is I love the intersection of faith and sports, and just the idea of leaning into that. One of the best things I get to do around here, I'm doing right now these days, is finishing up our fall season as the guys' soccer coach, and count that as an incredible privilege as well as part of the ministry opportunity that God's given me. So yeah, it's like I said, been doing this a long time, but I still love being around students, and I still feel like God has given me a passion and a heart to see them grow and develop and ultimately be released for kingdom impact and work. So no place else I'd rather be.
And this week, too, has been our Spirit Week, and we're leading up to homecoming here on Friday, so you've been extra busy with that kind of thing.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on, everything from we had an outdoor movie to the annual Powder Puff game and all kinds of things. And it's fun. We're, just seeing a lot of student connection and involvement to our events. We have our big homecoming event Saturday night, big football game tomorrow night. So we'll have probably 80 to 90% of our student body here for Saturday night's event. And just a great time and a great opportunity to lean into the whole idea of Christian community.
Yeah, and you came to us from Cornerstone,
I did,
right? You were over there.
What
was your role over at Cornerstone?
I was involved in kind of helping provide leadership for the student development arena over there, along with athletics. Taught a little bit, kind of in particular focused on kind of global ministry, global needs and issues and missions there as well too, which is kind of another whole piece of my life story and kind of my faith journey that I love engaging students with. Had a chance to be involved with the men's soccer team over there. And before that was actually at another Christian high school for 14 years, Wheaton Academy, and was involved in spiritual life, teaching Bible, coaching, student leadership, all those kinds of things. So I just, continue to have that heartbeat. And it's, sometimes it looks a little different, right, with a college student than it might with a high school student. But in many ways, there's kind of a similar trajectory of trying to kind of meet students where they're at and then give them something that will deeply, I think, encourage them in this season of life where they are asking so many questions. They're making some of those initial thoughts and decisions about what do I want my life to be about and what does faith mean for me too. I mean, what an incredible privilege to sit in and be part of those conversations, right?
And where I first met you was over there at Cornerstone. We take the seniors over there for a senior retreat day, and you were a speaker, and I was really impressed with what you had to say and making those connections. And then when I heard you were coming on staff here, I was really excited. So it's just been wonderful to have you here for the years that you've been here. And the Night of Nets, I know, is a big thing. Can you explain a little bit of the Night of Nets?
About that, definitely. That's something we just did a couple weeks ago here at North Point, and it actually happened. I was with a group of guys playing soccer in African country called Zambia that I've been involved in, kind of holistic Christian mission and community development work for a long time, and just fell in love with the people and the nation. And we had finished a soccer match with some college soccer guys from Cornerstone, and we just kind of met a family, and the mom told us the story of losing her little boy who's 15 months old because they didn't have enough money to provide each of their kids a bed net to sleep under. And they knew, the mom, literally knew, like, she's putting her kid at risk, but she just didn't have enough to do it. And so our 15-month-old wakes up almost, like, she was like, his skin was so hot to the touch. And so she picks him up, starts walking to this 10 miles to the nearest medical clinic, and he dies in her arms on the way there. And she tells us the story. And these, 18 to 21-year-old college males are like, in tears, and they're like, what do we do? And I said, well, what do you think we should do? And they're like, well, this isn't okay. And so they said, what if we took this idea of soccer and what we love and what they love? We came here to really play together with African community for the most part, especially sub-Saharan Africa and Zambia. They love soccer. So what if we tried to leverage what we do back in the States playing soccer to help address this specific need of trying to prevent the impact of malaria on people's lives and families' lives? So that kind of started it. We've been doing it for over a decade now, and other schools have joined kind of across the country in different ways. And we just finished at North Point too, hosting our Night of Nets match. And out of that, just probably provide about 750 families a bed net, and we've provided just over 30,000 families total now a bed net in sub-Saharan Africa. So again, like leveraging that, that's so fun for me, right? To leverage this power of sport that I've been involved in my whole life, and something I just love deeply, and to see how that can transform others' lives, meet needs, and ultimately give us a greater vision and purpose for, like, how do we play this sport? Why do we play this sport? So, and hopefully get a chance to maybe take some of my guys that I'm coaching right now over to Zambia to be involved in some of that work this summer.
And Chip's a published author too. He has a book out.
Wrote a little book about my involvement at a previous school in Africa. And the theme of the book was telling some of the stories of how we as students and faculty members were transformed by this process, and kind of even reading the scriptures a little bit more deeply, understanding maybe God's heart for the poor and for justice, his biblical passion for some of those things, and just in a new way through these incredible relationships that God blessed us with people in Zambia. And one of the really cool parts, writing a book was way harder than I thought, right? We all grade papers, right? I remember getting the first original copy back from a copy editor, and it looked like, there was marks on every, it was like 140 pages all marked up, and I remember one of my editors saying, I don't really like your ending. You might want to try that again. And, all those kinds of things. So, but the beauty of kind of writing and telling that story and kind of observations was it really wasn't my work only. A bunch of students who had been to Zambia with me, some of them multiple times, actually write a ton of the book. And between every chapter, they share kind of how God reshaped their life as, to be honest, like rich suburban evangelical American kids, and how that hopefully has taken their life in maybe a little bit a different trajectory in terms of what they care about and what they live for.
And just saying, in Chip's classes, when he's teaching Old Testament, he's bringing all of this life experience in as well, and shaping these students, and just really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, you have anything interesting to say?
I mean, he always does. He always does.
I mean, it's hard to follow that.
You can edit that out. I was just kidding.
I do want to add that I was sitting at Chip's desk the other day. Speaking of homecoming week, I was sitting at Chip's desk, and I noticed I don't go through your stuff, but I did notice you had a Post-it note that said, "Go online and buy a tiara." And I was like,
oh yeah,
I was like, what a life this guy leads. This guy's living the dream.
I literally I had it delivered by mistake to home or whatever, and I got a text from my wife, and then my daughter's chiming in, and they're like, "Yep, the yearly day that Dad buys a tiara."
Yeah. I was like, what a Post-it note. We get to write some of the craziest notes to ourselves.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it, don't you?
All right. Well, go ahead, Matt. A little bit about yourself and what you teach, things like that.
So, Matt Bell, I've been here 13 years now, which is crazy to believe. Before that, I have a pastoral background. So before that, I was in the church, and really just the switch there was I realized that in youth ministry. And this is nothing against youth ministry, but I spent most of my time away from students, and I found that I loved teaching so much, and kept being drawn to that side of my role. And one thing, led to another with some relationship I sparked up with Todd Schenck here, and found out there was an opening here, and I thought I really feel like God is moving me towards trying teaching in an educational setting, not in a church setting. And it's an opportunity to spend more time with students. And so I definitely entered into teaching, like my eyes wide open, going, all of these things that people say about teachers, like, oh, you get the whole summer off. That's so easy. I mean, your job must be so easy. I was just saying to somebody yesterday, I was like, just have somebody try your job for a week and see how they do. But it's really, really challenging, but also at the same time really, really rewarding. So when I started here, I was teaching ninth grade, and ninth grade was both Old Testament and New Testament combined. And so we would finish Old Testament by Christmas. So imagine that, right? So squeeze the entire Old Testament in by Christmas. And so we made a change a couple years in and said, what if we took the entire Old Testament in a year? Which I don't think a lot of schools were doing, by the way. But it was something that I thought was a valuable decision to make. And so we dedicated all of ninth grade to Old Testament, and then moved all of 10th grade to New Testament. And kind of like Chip said, I think the goal is for these students to see that this Bible is not just a disjointed group of books that are telling random stories that aren't connected, but it is one story that God is telling that He's inviting us to be a part of, and it's a story He's still telling, right? And He's still inviting us to be a part of, and that what we have is the opportunity to, and I see it in both of these guys as well, is that to passionately tell God's story that we get to be a part of, and invite these kids to be in it, and that this is the abundant life that Jesus is inviting us to be a part of, and like we get to do that. And so I now teach 10th grade only, since Chip came and took over 9th grade, which is an awesome transition. So I focus on New Testament, and one of the things I love about it is I get students that think that they just are in the easy part of the Bible, right? So they're like, oh, New Testament, Jesus, Gospels, got it. And it's like they're just prepared that they already know it all. And so I get to kind of like, reframe some of what they know, reframe how they've thought about some of the things that, they grew up learning. And not that, they weren't taught the right things, but again, like Chip said, sometimes we have stories, but we don't have the story. And so being able to put some of those stories back in their context, back in their place, and say, how is this pointing to the abundant life that Jesus is calling us to live? And so it's a joy just kind of taking students through the New Testament And I love the ability to point back to the Old Testament. And one of the questions I ask at the beginning of the year is, does Jesus connect to the Old Testament at all? And the vast majority of students say no. And we spend most of the year just going backwards constantly and going, look at this, and look what Jesus did, and look at what the Old Testament says. And by the end of the year, we've made so many connections to see look how complete this is, and look where it's been pointing all along, and look what Jesus has accomplished. And we get to be a part of that, and we're invited into that. So about 6 years ago, I also took on the role of spiritual life director. And so that means I'm in charge of chapels here and discipleship groups. And so that's a real privilege as well. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's one that I am grateful to have. And I think our students benefit from our chapels, I hope, and I think our staff does a great job with the discipleship groups, and I think a lot of really good things happen in those groups. So I'm glad to be a part of that program. So
one of the distinctives of North Point Christian is that we're able to have Bible classes 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so not only that, but every year the students will be going through the Bible classes. So from the time that they're in junior high here, middle school here, all the way up through high school and graduating seniors, they have 5 days of Bible classes a week. Not very many Christian schools do that any longer. But we
especially not for 4 years, right? So,
right. Exactly.
We definitely want that to be one of our distinctives, is that our cornerstone, our foundation is the Word of God. And I think that you see that here. I really appreciate, too, what Matt does in way of the ministry here with the chapels and the discipleship groups. It's invaluable, and it's a lot of work put into that, and to help them to grow in God's grace, and spiritual formation is critical here at North Point Christian.
Yeah.
And Matt is one of the main guys that's involved in doing that.
No doubt. Well, and I think one of the things I have always appreciated about Matt, I knew this even before I saw him in a couple of contexts before, is just he's a great worship leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that makes such an incredible impact, not only in terms of his ability to mentor students who help lead worship in chapel settings, but like he's an incredible gift to our whole community. There's so many times for us as staff or for school families or all those kinds of things. Matt is such a key, just to have somebody who can lead worship well. Just, man, that makes a huge difference, I think, in just the whole atmosphere and environment. And so that's one of the things that I've so deeply appreciated more and more just being here, is that gift that he brings and then uses so well here.
Yeah,
thanks.
Mega ditto.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm Todd Schenck, and I've been here, next year will be my 30th year, so it's been a while. And I've taught everything from, when I came in, I was the junior high teacher, so I've taught everything from junior high all through the high school, and everything that we teach, I've taught. I'm now the junior and senior Bible teacher here at North Point Christian. And as juniors, with the foundation that they have from Chip's class in Old Testament, the foundation they have from Matt's class in New Testament, then I tell them they're biblical archaeologists now. We're going to give them the tools to be able to dig into the Word of God on their own. And as they uncover what's there, to be able to interpret it to the best of their ability, to be humble when they do that, but at the same time the responsibility that we have to handle God's Word well. So, junior Bible is, the big word is hermeneutics, from the Greek god Hermes, the messenger god. But simply put, it's principles of interpretation, of how do you interpret these different genres that you have in the Bible. I use the illustration of a newspaper that I'm sure everybody knows what a newspaper still is, right? Okay.
At least they found one online somewhere, right?
That's the digital internet, right?
Yeah, the digital internet, that's for sure.
The printed internet.
But, if you would read the obituaries, or you read the comics, you're going to misread either of those. And we just intuitively know those, but the Bible we don't. And then the fact that context is important, and context determines meaning. You'll hear kids say that a lot after they've had my class, because I repeat it over and over and over again. And so as juniors, we're going through both Old and New Testaments, but we're learning and gaining the tools to be able to interpret the Word well, and to do that in community and telling them that it doesn't need to just stay in their head, but move to their heart and then be lived out in their life. And so that's junior Bible. And then seniors, when they come in, we do hermeneutics of the Word in junior Bible, and then I will say hermeneutics of the world in senior Bible. And how do you interpret the worldviews that are out there? So senior Bible is worldviews, and we also get into some apologetics and then ethics to kind of round out the senior year. And so I think that it teaches them to think well, to think critically, to live Christianly. We're teaching them how the stuff of life and their life of faith intersect, and to, again, fulfill our mission statement through the mandates, which are the image mandate, love mandate, and mission mandate to impact the world for Jesus Christ. And so my role here has been in shaping the curriculum to what we have now with the help of my friends and colleagues here. And then also, like I said, to prepare these juniors and seniors to be able to leave this place and to impact the world for Jesus Christ. So,
Man, I so appreciate that, Todd. I think Matt and I both had kids in your classes or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And just the beauty of, even I saw some of Trey's interpretive journeys, which was kind of cool, right? And just see my son, who was 15 or 16, I think at the time or whatever, actually engaging scripture in ways that I know, so many adult Christians have never had the opportunity to really do. They've been hearing it, but they've never learned how to engage it themselves or whatever in such a real way. It was an incredible privilege. And just, I love the fact that, your worldview class really does, I think, help shape. Because I think there's always this tendency, are we just insulating these kids, right? And all of a sudden, we're going to turn them loose, and they're just going to either get chewed up by the world, right? Or they're going to go crazy because they've never been able to do anything, or, whatever the thing is. But you introduce in such a compelling way this idea that, hey, here's how we can engage well. Here's how we can, speak truth into the culture in redemptive ways. And what a great way, I think, to end their high school career.
Yeah, and I've time and time again heard stories of students who have gone to college and taking a similar class, and they're like, it was easy because of what I took in high school. So they're really well prepared.
That's been a team effort to prepare them to
really well prepared. Yep. So, but I appreciate, Todd, your longevity, and that's not like a crack at your age, I'm saying, but what I mean is that to do the same thing for almost 30 years, but also what most people don't know is that you're teaching 7 hours a day, which most teachers get a prep. Some teachers get 2 preps. You teach all 7 hours a day, and that, it is extremely tiring, and that's a choice you've made, and so we just honor you.
Well, I was a pretty good cross country runner in high school, so I've learned how to pace myself.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like the analogy.
Yeah, but we appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that too.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, like I said, today was just a way of introducing ourselves and who we are and why we think North Point Christian is important. And so we got to the point.
Got to the point.
Wow. We understand what the point is. And so we just want to thank all of you who have listened today, and to look forward, hopefully, to more podcasts that will be upcoming.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Point. I'm your producer, Alex Sigma. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to rate us on Spotify and share this podcast with others. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. We'll see you on the next episode.